Hi everyone, so today we're going to talk about generalization and demonstration, two key concepts in psychology that explain how we learn in response to the world around us. These ideas came from classical conditioning, but they show up in everyday life way more than you might expect. Let's start with generalization. This happens when someone reacts to a new situation in the same way they react to a similar one before. It's like your brain saying, "This feels familiar, so I'll respond the same way." For example, if you got nervous giving a speech in class, you might feel anxious anytime you're asked to speak, even if it's just a small group. That's generalization. Your fear responses spreads to a similar situation. In behavior psychology, generalization is seen when a conditioned response transferred to another stimulant that resembles the original one. Think of the Pavlov dogs. They were trained to salivate at the sound of the bell, but later they started salivating at similar sounds too, like a buzzer or a chime. That's generalization in action. Now let's flip it. Demonstration is when we learn to tell the difference between similar things and response only to the one that matters. Using the dog example again, if the dog learns to salivate only when it hears the original bell and not when it hears the buzzer, that's discrimination. It's a more refined kind of learning. Your brain is saying, "I know what's relevant here." Discrimination helps us make smarter choices. In social psychology, it can explain how we learn to trust certain people while being cautious around others. For example, if someone had a bad experience with one friend, they might start to avoid all friends. That's generalization. But if they learn to realize which people are actually supportive, that's discrimination. It's emotional learning and it's powerful. Here's another example. Imagine you're training for a job interview and you get nervous every time you walk into the building with fluorescent lights and a receptionist. That's generalization. But if you learn to stay calm unless it's a real interview situation, that's discrimination. You're learning to respond based on context. Both generalization and demonstration are part of the learning theory. They help us adapt. Generalization gives us speed, it's fast and automatic. Demonstration gives us accuracy, it's thoughtful and specific. We need both, but knowing when each is helping or happening can help us understand our own behavior better. So, to wrap it up, generalization is when we respond the same way to similar things. Demonstration is when we learn to respond differently based on what's actually relevant. These concepts aren't just for the textbooks, but they're part of how we grow, connect, and make sense of the world.